Hi guys! First video in 10 months, and I'm off to a great start because as you can tell by the title, this was supposed to be uploaded about a month ago. Yeah, went on a very long break. I'll probably get into that, like maybe never. Actually though, I probably will make a video explaining that. It's going to be really depressing, just a heads up, if it ever does get uploaded. I know I don't have to, but at this point, I feel a strong sense of obligation. I'm just gonna shut my mouth now, because I'll be doing a lot of talking in this video that I've been talking about, that I may or may not upload, so let's just get to it. The first squishy I'm making over is this donut with a very sad, pathetic drizzle on it, so I'm just sanding it down first to make sure that the paint sticks to it. Next, I'm taking this soft white matte tulip paint. So before, I just got regular matte tulip paint. I didn't realize that it needed to be soft, so I had to go to 3 different stores looking for this, but thankfully I did finally get my hands on it. I definitely do agree that this made the whole painting process a lot easier because it is much more opaque and only needed 1 or 2 coats, but I do wish that I went over the original dark drizzle more because it did still end up poking out by the end of the makeover. I had way too much paint on this because I thought I would need a lot more, but I ended up having to put some of it back into the tube, and that wasn't very easy. Now that the base coat is done, I'm trying to mix up a nice orange color for the frosting. I'm not entirely sure what I did wrong. I think maybe I should have started with more yellow than I did red. Regardless, I definitely need more practice in color mixing. This was not very opaque, so I ended up needing to do several coats. I think I did 4 or 5, but I wanted to be super careful because if I did too many layers, it would end up being rock hard. And as I mentioned earlier, the brown drizzle did still end up poking through. I'm still really upset about that. I wish I took the time to do this right, but in case anyone missed it, I took a break. Like a really, really long break. So I'm pretty rusty. Anyway, while I was letting the 3rd or 4th coat of the frosting dry, I took this other squishy, I didn't even know what it was supposed to be, and I took my scissors and cut it into a sphere shape. A lot of people have said that reshaping old squishies is time consuming, and I don't disagree, however I also found it strangely therapeutic. Once I was happy with the sphere shape, I took some brown and a little bit of black paint and mixed those together to be a really dark chocolate color. And then I painted it all over the sphere. I was worried that because it was a cut-up squishy and the pores were more exposed that it would just drink up the paint, but I ended up only needing 1 coat. While that was drying, I started to try and mix up a donut color. I don't know if it's just me or if other people have this problem too, but I can never get a perfect donut color. You'd think it would be as simple as mixing brown and white and maybe a little yellow, but I've tried that and it just does not work. I wasted so much time and a lot of paint too getting to this, and this was the best it was gonna get, I figured, so I just went along with it and used that to paint my donut. I had to be really careful not to get it on the frosting because I didn't have any more of the frosting color that I mixed earlier, so I could not just paint over any of the donut color that got onto the frosting, so that was a little nerve-wracking. Thankfully, I don't recall any catastrophic errors taking place, so that's always a plus. I didn't bother painting this part of the donut white because the donut color was going to be pretty close to what was already there, but looking back, I definitely should have. It would have made things a lot easier because I ended up using multiple coats of donut color. Once I was done with that part, I flipped it over and revisited the frosting side and just took off any of the donut colored paint that got on there, and then I glued on my dark chocolate colored sphere. I'm not sure if it's obvious or not, but I'm going for the Halloween spider donut that Duncan does every year, so the middle part is supposed to be a glazed munchkin, so I needed to get some white paint and just dab that on there at random to really give it that glazed look. When I was done glazing the munchkin, I added on the legs, and I'm really disappointed with myself because I messed this part up. The legs are supposed to be more spread apart, but I put them very close together. But there wasn't much I could do about it, so I went ahead and added on the eyes, and that was the final touch. While it didn't turn out perfect and I'm really bummed that I messed up the legs, I still think this was a pretty neat idea. Our next victim is this very sad beat-up panda. I don't think I need to point out that he's very dirty, his leg is coming off, he's semi-decapitated, and he's missing an ear. This squishy used to belong to Chip, but I see that he has not adopted my squishy-loving behavior and lifestyle. So right off the bat, I forgot to sand it, and I went straight to fabric gluing it, and I found this very satisfying plug in the nozzle of the bottle. I don't know why, but it always satisfies me when things take on the exact shape of their mold. Anyway, I'm just doing some emergency surgery here. Just trying to reattach his head and legs to his body, no big deal. After applying the glue, I rubber banded him all together. I glued him again just to be sure that everything was in place, and then I hoped and prayed that he'd make it to the next day. I'm assuming that I wasn't the greatest surgeon because his head was still partially coming off along with some of his limbs, so I just filled in all of the scars and cracks and crevices and holes with some puffy paint. When that was all done drying, I applied my first coat of the soft white matte puffy paint, and I was very surprised because this squishy needed a lot of coats. For some reason, it was just drinking this paint up. I don't know if it was because I forgot to sand it, or the material the squishy is made of, or because the squishy is so dirty, but it took a lot of paint to cover this thing. Even after multiple coats, you could still see through the white, but I decided I needed to move on anyway because this video was already late as it was, so I was very short on time. I had negative time to get this done. Thankfully, the dirtiness and blotchiness of the skin tone worked in favor of the design that I had in mind, so I just went ahead and put some light green puffy paint on him and started spreading that everywhere. This color needed even more coats than the white matte did because it was very neon and see-through. So this was very time-consuming and used up a ton of paint. So what I wanted to transform this panda into was inspired by the missing ear. I wanted to make a zombie panda. What I wanted to do was cover the white with a sickly-looking green and the blue with a black, so it's a normal panda, but with a zombie skin tone because, like I said, he's a zombie. When the green was good enough, I moved on to the black, and I covered all of his blue areas with black paint. It was really hard not to strive for perfection with this, but like I said, I had no time to get this done, and I figured since it was a zombie, it's okay to have some imperfections anyway. I really liked using the black puffy paint. It's always satisfying on squishies because you don't need a whole lot and it covers everything so nicely. So this part of the makeover really helped me calm down and gave me hope that maybe this wouldn't turn out to be a total dumpster fire. I painted over the details of his face, like his eyes and his nose and his mouth. I thought everything was super cute, so I wanted to keep it how it was. This part was also very calming and satisfying because it felt like I was restoring him more than I was making him something totally different, so I had guidelines and it was a lot less stressful. When I was just about done with the black, I moved on to the other parts of his body and started painting those green. Next I needed to paint his feet, so I took out my white matte and painted a base coat onto them. Thankfully, this went pretty smoothly. His feet were the least complicated part of his body, and they didn't drink up the paint for some reason, so I was grateful that I at least got a break. Next, I cleaned up the black on the edges of his feet. It started to turn gray because I was too lazy to get a paper towel to clean off my paintbrush, but eventually I caved in and got one. Once I was done with his feet, I set him down to take a look at him, and I noticed something catastrophic. I knew that more green paint wouldn't cover it because it was black and the green paint was very thin, but I pathetically attempted to cover it anyway and moved on to painting his butt black. So now I wanted to address the missing ear, which is what inspired this design. I wanted to fill the missing ear with a brain, but unfortunately when I tried to make the puffy paint look brainy and blobby, it all just kind of melted together. So unfortunately, it ended up looking more like brain soup oozing out of his head. I also filled in his cheek gash with some paint just to look like flesh. Next, I added on his toe beans. I am aware they are uneven, but he is a zombie, so he is allowed to be imperfect. While I was doing all of this other stuff, I got an idea of how to address the black stain on his head. The first part of addressing it was to repaint the bamboo he was holding, so I just made that a nice dark green and then added on some light green details. And then I took some dark green puffy paint and I covered the black spot with a giant blob of it instead. My solution was to cover the stain with an even bigger stain. But, hear me out, this dark green is actually bamboo juice. Most zombies are covered with the blood of their victims, but this panda zombie is covered with bamboo juice because he is a vegetarian zombie panda. So now, not only do we have a cool zombie panda, but we have a cool zombie panda with a story and a personality. So I guess this could be considered as one of my original characters now. That's gonna be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'm sorry for the long break. Hopefully I'll be back to uploading at least somewhat regularly, and I'll see you next time. Bye!